Welcome everyone to the Dai Quoc World channel. Do you think we might be misunderstanding the Buddha? Not only non-Buddhists, but even practitioners sometimes still harbor misconceptions. Even during the Buddha's time, some disciples misunderstood his teachings on the contemplation of the impurity of the body, leading to the unfortunate consequence of them choosing to end their lives. Therefore, sometimes in the scriptures, we see the Buddha lamenting that he did not say that, did not teach that, and did not advocate teaching the doctrine of annihilation or nihilism. It is understandable that Western scholars misunderstand the Buddha's teachings when studying Buddhism. We have misunderstood the Buddha and conveyed his teachings inaccurately, inadvertently causing misconceptions for future generations. Among these, many mistakenly believe that nirvana is a state of permanent death. However, nirvana is actually a symbol of the ultimate happiness of those who have attained liberation. It is a happiness that we can fully experience right here, in the present. That is just one of the points in the Buddha's teachings that can easily lead to misunderstandings. Don't forget to like and turn on the notification bell so you don't fuck. First, let's explore the path to enlightenment of the Buddha. Both science and Buddhist teachings share a common goal and aspiration: to end human suffering. However, science, with its cognitive paradigm based on the principle of an objective mind perceiving objects, holds that reality is the material world. It is influenced by the notion that understanding suffering, the origin of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path to the cessation of suffering are all elements of the external world. Specifically, suffering, its causes, and how to end it all depend on worldview and living conditions. Therefore, to end suffering, one must change the world and improve living conditions. With this understanding, science continuously explores the material world to transform it, change living conditions and circumstances, and help people escape suffering. In contrast, through observing and contemplating the interaction between the six senses and the six sense objects, the Buddha realized that reality is sensation, is consciousness, not external material objects. Based on the principle of the mind knowing the mind itself, not the mind knowing external objects. Thus, he became enlightened about the mind, not about the external world or universe. He realized that the Four Noble Truths are the truth about suffering, about the cause of suffering. The cessation of suffering and the path to that cessation both originate from consciousness, not from external objects or the world. Therefore, the path to end suffering is to transform one's own consciousness, not to try to change the external world. In scientific terms, that is the path the Buddha realized and taught. For those who have attained enlightenment, understanding and practicing correctly according to the Buddha's teachings has helped them end all suffering, completely eradicate afflictions. All that needed to be done has been completed. Now only the task of spreading one's enlightenment to others remains. However, this is not a mandatory requirement. For them, whether the universe is square or round, long or short, impermanent or eternal, finite or infinite, the origin of humans and the world is no longer something that people need to struggle to find answers to. Later Buddhist schools did not fully understand that the Buddha's enlightenment was about consciousness, not about the external world, the mind knowing objects. Therefore, their commentaries, annotations, and scriptures mainly discuss the world, whether relative or absolute. Many people, including the majority of Buddhists, still do not fully understand the Buddha's enlightenment about the mind. Lam believes that modern scientific advancements further prove the Buddha's pre-scientific understanding of the world. A disciple of the Buddha named Malunkyaputta often asked questions about the world, the future, and humanity. Will this world exist forever, or will it be destroyed one day? These are metaphysical questions. Is this world finite or infinite, bounded or unbounded? The Buddha often did not answer these questions. Therefore, Malunkyaputta felt very frustrated and said, "If the Buddha does not answer my questions, I will stop practicing." The Buddha called Malunkyaputta to his side and asked, "When you took the precepts, did I ever promise you that I would answer such questions?" "No, you did not promise that. So why did you say that I would stop practicing if you didn't answer those questions?" Then, the Buddha told the story of a man who was struck by a poisoned arrow. When the doctor was called to provide emergency treatment, the wounded man said, "Wait, first tell me the name of the person who shot me. Why did they shoot me? Could it be that I or my family have some conflict with them? I need to know all these details before I agree to treatment." The doctor said that if you spend time trying to find answers to all these things, you will die from the poison before all your questions are clarified. The Buddha taught that each of us carries our own suffering within. If we only stop at asking questions like this, our pain will never fade away. Therefore, we only teach what is beneficial, helping Buddhists transform their inner selves and heal the suffering within. The teachings of the Buddha are profoundly practical in nature. The Buddha taught about the nature of suffering and the path to transform that suffering. Although he is capable of answering metaphysical questions, but he chose to remain silent, knowing that such responses would bring no benefit to the practitioner. Furthermore, there are questions that cannot be answered, not because the Blessed One did not know the answer, but because those questions cannot be answered with a simple yes or no. Once, when the Buddha was dwelling at Koh Sambai, after the period of walking meditation, he held a mushroom in his hand and asked the monks, "On the day of the bhikkhu ordination, are the leaves in my hand more or less than the leaves in this entire forest?" "Venerable sir, compared to the leaves in your hand, the leaves in the forest are many times more numerous." The Blessed One, the compassionate teacher, once said, "Truly, O disciples, what I have taught you is comparable to a handful of leaves, while that which I have understood but not taught is as the leaves of the whole forest. But what we teach, in the end, is just like a leaf in the hand." Why, you ask? Because the teachings we impart hold immense significance for the transformation and healing of all sentient beings. We do not teach things that do not contribute to the transformation and healing of the soul. This story is a vivid illustration of the Buddha's extremely practical teachings. We need to spend quiet time to transform and heal ourselves. However, humans, from kings and officials to even the disciples of the Buddha, often enjoys posing deeply philosophical questions. There are a total of 14 questions that the Buddha did not answer, as he considered these issues to be impractical. Is this world eternal or ephemeral? What is both constant and impermanent? Not constant, nor inconstant? The Buddha did not answer such questions because none of the 4 propositions presented accurately reflect the truth. These 4 propositions are called Tahalema, and the wisdom of the Buddha is inherently transcendent, surpassing even Tahalema, or indeed, beyond the 4 established categories. Finite, infinite, both finite and infinite, neither finite nor infinite. The Buddha also did not answer these 4 questions, as they are not definitive in nature. That means they are not explicitly declared or specified. Similarly, the question of the Buddha's state after death, whether he exists, does not exist, both exists and does not exist, or neither exists nor does not exist, was also posed as a metaphysical inquiry. Not existing nor non-existing. That question also falls into the indeterminable category. And the Buddha refrained from answering them to avoid falling into speculative views, as these do not lead to the cessation of suffering. The ultimate purpose in his teachings. Luis de la Vallapozan, a renowned Spanish scholar, specializes in the fields of Indology and Buddhist studies. Proficient in Chinese, Sanskrit, and Pali. At the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, there were significant contributions in the field of Buddhist studies. He taught at the Catholic Institute of Paris, while also translating important works such as those by Vasubandhu and writing essays on the formation of the Yogacara doctrine. Vallée-Poussin notes that the Buddha did not provide a detailed and explicit explanation of the mechanism behind karma and rebirth. There is no self or ego, so who creates karma and who bears the consequences? Meanwhile, the concepts of rebirth and karma in Brahmanism are very simple. Due to the belief in an eternal soul or life principle, the Buddhist doctrine of non-self is precisely the key point that helps us understand this more profoundly. Karma. So, do karma and the cycle of rebirth exist without a self to experience them? Who is the one who performs the action and also bears the consequences? In his final work, he particularly emphasized these concerns. Buddhist doctrines and philosophy. The teacher has always been preoccupied with these issues. Despite his significant contributions to research and translation work, the Buddha did not clearly define the nature of the reincarnating entity or the nature of the soul. All sentient beings must undergo the cycle of reincarnation. Vallée-Poussin poses a question. Is nirvana a realm or not? If so, where is it? And how can one reach that place? The nature of Nibbana remains vague to scholars, although he personally believes that the Buddha's teachings on Nibbana are very clear. Surely, the image of the elegant lotus flower is no stranger to you. The majestic Dharma wheel and the mystical halo, Usnisa, are common images in Buddhist paintings. Did you know that an ordinary bicycle wheel consists of three main parts: the axle, spokes, and rim? Symbolizing the three aspects of Buddhist teachings: morality, wisdom, and meditation. Have you too heard of the terrifying tantric ritual instrument called the thigh bone trumpet? The Tibetan thigh bone trumpet is an instrument made from a human thigh bone, shaped like a curved horn. Its sound pleased the wrathful deities, and deeply terrified all spirits and demons. Regarding the thigh bone trumpet that I possess, the object symbolizes that deities control over the realm. To gain a comprehensive view of this rich symbolic system, mythological motifs, along with mystical rituals. Above all, to admire the unique artistic beauty and understand the profound philosophies of Buddhism. Especially ancient Tibetan Vajrayana Buddhism, the Joy Kua Dai believes that the Handbook on Tibetan Buddhist Symbols is a book you must have. Ranked among the bestsellers in the religious art and photography category on Amazon. After 8 years of diligent research, based on exclusive hand-drawn images by artists. With author Robert Beer, you will be guided to explore the magnificent and exquisite world of Tibetan art. Admire the vivid beauty of Buddhist paintings and statues. And this debut work is deeply imprinted with Tibetan Buddhist culture. Additionally, readers can also find the excellent Vietnamese translation by translator Phan Cam Thuong, a national award winner. The material civilization of the Vietnamese has been fully and meticulously conveyed to the Vietnamese land. Thereby, Vietnamese readers have the opportunity to access the treasure trove of Buddhist knowledge more easily and intimately. This book is not only for Buddhist enthusiasts but also a meaningful gift for artists and designers. Those passionate about Eastern cultural arts. And finally, it is for anyone who values spiritual principles, always craves knowledge, and aspires toward enlightenment. The book will guide you to the noble spiritual values in Buddhism, helping you find peace in your soul and discover the path to enlightenment from deep within yourself. Based on the description in the video, the soldier ordered a handbook printed with Tibetan Buddhist symbols. Get the book now to receive many attractive offers from the ancient world. We also need to seize the opportunities created by scholars to clarify the meaning for later Buddhist researchers. Buddhist scriptures mention two types of non-self. Humans are described as non-self, consistent with the Buddhist philosophy of non-self. When examining more closely inside the mosquito's body, if there is no permanent or unchanging entity, then nothing exists eternally. The nature of the self is often defined as an eternal and unchanging entity. But when analyzing a person, we see they are composed of the five aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. All conditioned phenomena are impermanent and constantly changing in every moment. Nothing is unchanging, from physical forms to emotions, perceptions, and thoughts. The stream of life is always changing. Nothing is immutable or eternal. Therefore, there is no other choice but to follow this rule. Observing things like our hands, distant mountains, or flowing rivers, we also find nothing that is unchanging or permanently enduring. Thus, there is no independent and permanent self in any being, nor does any self exist in phenomena. Impermanence is the starting point, because all things are constantly changing. All phenomena must follow the law of arising and ceasing in every moment, meaning they change incessantly at each instant, like successive frames in a film reel. Many people often have a negative view of impermanence, but in reality, if life had no change, existence itself would be impossible. It is precisely because of impermanence that life can exist. If there were a button to stop this world, everything would freeze and life would end. Similarly, when watching a movie, if we press the pause button, all motion and images on the screen stop immediately. Life exists thanks to the law of impermanence. Without it, a corn seed would remain just a seed, never sprouting into a plant for us to harvest and enjoy. If all things were not impermanent, a child would remain a child forever, never growing up. If everything existed forever, illnesses could never be cured. Impermanence is actually a miracle, so why do we often view it pessimistically and with negative emotions? To say impermanence is suffering is incorrect. The scriptures record the Buddha's words in his dialogues with his disciples. The Buddha once asked, "Is form permanent or impermanent?" Are feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness permanent or impermanent? They are impermanent. The Buddha asked, if everything is impermanent, do they truly bring happiness or only suffering? Does impermanence lead to suffering? In truth, that was not the Buddha's intention, but a misinterpretation in the transmission. The Buddha had very intelligent disciples, but also some who were less intelligent. The view that impermanence is the cause of suffering is not the message the Buddha intended to convey. Without impermanence, how could we attain enlightenment? We would never be able to know everything. It is precisely due to impermanence that afflictions can transform into enlightenment. Impermanence is the source of all change and peace. The obsession with the notion of suffering and samsara has obscured the Buddha's teachings. Once, the Buddha had a dialogue with one of his disciples like this. Is form permanent or impermanent? Permanence is merely temporary. If everything is impermanent, always changing, does a permanent, unchanging, self, Atman, exist? Permanence is an illusion, there is no self. Impermanence denies the existence of a permanent self, because the self is the cause of the illusion of an enduring, unchanging entity. Non-self and impermanence are essentially one. Where there is impermanence, there must be non-self. The soul is not a permanent, unchanging entity. Asserting that the soul and body are one is an incorrect view. However, saying they are completely separate is also incorrect, because there is no unchanging soul at all. In the Milinda Panha, the dialogue between the sage Nagasena and King Milinda is recorded. Sir, are the soul and body one or two? True to the spirit of the Buddha's teachings, Nagasena did not give a direct answer. King Milinda said that he had agreed to answer all my questions. Why doesn't he answer now? Your Majesty, Venerable Nagasena asked whether the mangoes in the royal garden are sweet or sour. The king had to admit he couldn't answer, for there were no mango trees in his garden. Venerable Nagasena then further explained that this matter is similar. How can we affirm that the soul and the body are one? When there is no eternal soul, can the body be separate? All things in the world are impermanent. Nothing is eternal and unchanging, nor does an independent, immortal self exist. Discussing whether the soul and body are one or separate is actually an incorrect way of posing the question. For example, these four subjects performed actions between the years 2000 and 2013. The consequences have become clear, and we see the Japanese people as those who bear these consequences. Is the one who causes suffering and the one who endures suffering one or two? Based on common understanding or widely accepted truth, the doer and the enjoyer of the results are one. Those who sow the wind shall reap the whirlwind. One reaps what one sows. Whoever sows the wind will reap the whirlwind. However, from the perspective of absolute truth, that is not entirely correct. Because all things in the world are impermanent and constantly changing. From 2000 to 2013, people have undergone profound changes, from external appearance to internal feelings and perceptions. The formation of spiritual life and consciousness. Comparing the one who causes suffering and the one who endures, it shows a great difference. Generally, the similarity is that both fall into wrong views, eternalism, and cling to the self. Conversely, to say they are completely different is also incorrect. It would fall into another wrong view called annihilationism. Therefore, the Buddha taught us to avoid the two extremes and expounded the middle way. The middle way transcends both opposing extremes. Thus, if one cannot answer all 14 questions above, because those concepts imply that the world, the Tathagata, or the soul are eternal entities with a self. If this world is inherently impermanent and ever-changing, asserting it as eternal and unchanging is a mistaken view. To say it is impermanent is not entirely accurate either, as that expression does not fully capture the deep nuances. To say it is both eternal and impermanent is incorrect. And to say it is neither eternal nor impermanent is also not right. Because such statements are still bound by the concept of self. If this world is selfless, with no fixed, eternal, and unchanging essence at all, the world is finite. To say it is infinite is also incorrect, and to say it is both finite and infinite is not right either. And to say it is neither finite nor infinite is also not correct. Because such views are all entangled with the concept of an inherent self. Understanding the concept of selflessness of oneself and selflessness of all phenomena helps us understand why the if questions posed above are inaccurate. Like the question Princess Milinda asked the monk Nagasena, Are the body and soul one or two? There is no immortal soul or eternal, unchanging self. Therefore, such a question cannot be answered simply with yes or no. Silence does not necessarily mean ignorance. But according to our doctrine, those mental subjects cannot convey the truth. Categories such as existence, non-existence, birth, destruction, having, not having. First, regarding the object and category, all answers based on these concepts cannot be accurate. Therefore, all 14 questions remain unanswered. Because if I answer, that answer would contradict the teachings of our religion. The path transcends all erroneous views, including notions of existence, non-existence, permanence, and annihilation. Coming and going, unified yet still diverse. In the Katyayana Sutra, the Buddha teaches that right view is to see beyond the categories of existence and non-existence. Transcending these categories also means surpassing the concepts of birth and death. In the Anuruddha Sutta, when Venerable Anuruddha encountered the leaders of other religious sects, they asked him, "After death, does the Tathagata continue to exist or not?" Anuruddha refused to answer. The Blessed One, my teacher, has never instructed me on how to respond to those 4 questions. Asking questions like that makes it really hard to determine and difficult to answer. An outsider thought that because Anuruddha was just a novice monk, he wouldn't be able to answer their question. Then, Anuruddha returned to see the Buddha and recounted the entire event. "Venerable Sir, this morning I had a meeting with the leaders of other religious sects. These are the responses I gave to them. Anuruddha, the Tathagata is sitting right in front of you. Look at the Tathagata and answer. Is the Tathagata this form? Is it permanent? No. So, in your opinion, does the Tathagata have another form? Is that it? Is the Tathagata the same as sensation? No. Can the Tathagata be found within sensations? Also no. Then is the Tathagata separate from sensation? Again, no. The Buddha raised questions surrounding the aggregates, from form, feeling, perception, mental formations, to consciousness. O Anuruddha, even if I were sitting right before your eyes, you would not perceive my true nature, not even while I am still present in this world. How can I find the Tathagata when that form is no more? Even when he was vividly present before my eyes, I could not grasp him, let alone now. So why do you think you can comprehend the Tathagata after he has entered nirvana? Even if the Tathagata is still present in the world, one cannot find a Tathagata that is eternal and unchanging. We cannot answer those 14 questions does not mean that we are not competent enough to answer them. The answer cannot be accurate, because those questions are all based on conceptual categories such as birth and death, existence and non-existence, unity and diversity. If we perceive things through the lens of the middle way, concepts such as existence and non-existence, identity and difference, finite and infinite, will all appear in a different light. They are merely mental concepts and cannot accurately describe reality. Therefore, any question posed cannot fully encompass the truth. According to modern science, all forms of existence, from matter to energy, from clouds to flames, adhere to the first principle of thermodynamics. Not an expression of creativity, nor is it destruction. Scientist Antoine Lavoisier once stated that existence, because the concepts of arising and ceasing, existence and non-existence, all rely on and define each other. Without life, how could there be eternal death or everlasting life? If there is eternal death, then in principle, why can there not be eternal life? The teachings of the Buddha were conveyed with great skill and subtlety. When praising the Dharma, if our pronunciation is inaccurate, it may lead listeners to misunderstand the meaning and result in unintended consequences. We need to be skillful in teaching the Dharma, ensuring that every word spoken is true and correct. French listeners also need to skillfully close their eyes to avoid the Dharma, in such a way that they are not misunderstood or trapped by words and personal prejudices. There must be cooperation between the speaker and the listener. It is important for the speaker to understand the psychology of the listener. We need to speak in a way that words go straight to the listener's heart. French listeners need to open their hearts, set aside all prejudices, so they can sincerely and fully receive the genuine teachings. Otherwise, their perceptions may become negative and cause harm. The story using the snake as a source tells of the female teacher Acela, who misunderstood the Buddha's teachings, practiced incorrectly, and stubbornly refused to heed the advice of other teachers. I do not teach that way. Why did you understand it like that? Then, he gave the example of catching a snake. If not caught properly, the catcher may be bitten by the snake and lose their life.